So habits. Let's talk about habits. Would you prefer to kind of get into a little group and then talk about yes? Like, didn't even let me finish the sentence. He's like, yes, let's do some group chat. So yes, in your groups then, let's talk about habits. What are your good habits? What are your bad habits? What good habits would you like to develop? What bad habits would you like to get rid of? So maybe we'll do it in groups of 3. So 3, 3, 3, and then the 3 of you guys. Perfect. Why don't we start with you guys? Why don't you share some of the things that you discussed, just so you can be included as well. What I'll do is I'll spin you around so you can see the room, be in the room. Go for it. Tejasva, I don't know if you want to share Layla's, Harshita's, your points.
I think Layla should share everybody's, if you can hear her.
I don't know. I haven't heard her yet. Go on, Layla.
Yeah, I've managed to get my plug in a headphones so I can talk.
Okay.
Because my speakers weren't working, like my microphone wasn't working. So to be honest, I have a really bad memory. I was actually just discussing that I'm trying to work on my memory.
Uh-huh.
But, I think, is it Hashita?
Yeah, Harshita.
Yeah. I can't remember what you said. I think I was still trying to plug my microphone in. But I remember Tejasva, you were talking about eating more fruit every day. I mean, I think you're talking about, Hashita was talking about how she's trying to read. Was that you? Which person was that?
Okay, so more reading, more fruit. What were the bad habits? Obviously, the counter of that, so like junk food and watching Netflix, I suppose. But what were the bad habits? Anything identified?
I think there were so many good, we didn't get time to discuss the bad ones.
That is actually what I was expecting you to say. I was thinking you struggle with the bad habits, but let's see if anyone else here. I mean, I'm expecting the same, but you never know. I'm gonna see what others are saying. All right, so let's hear from you. Why don't we literally go around one good habit first, and then we'll go one bad. At this point, you should just be off your tongue because you have just discussed it for the last 10 minutes. So.
We just discussed was good habits we're trying to cultivate.
That's okay. That's okay. No. I know you don't put yourself on the spot and be like, oh yeah, I'm wonderful and everything. So, okay, what's a good habit you would like to cultivate?
Reading the Gita every day and journaling.
Nice. Okay, reading the Gita and journaling. And when you say every day, is it like one verse a day? Is it like just a line? What have you set yourself like a goal in terms of?
We're having weekly sessions where we're covering chapters.
Oh, nice. Because they say 2 verses a day of the Bhagavad Gita, and you can read it in a year because there's roughly 700 verses. So that's a pretty good aim. Like it's a reasonable period to get through the Gita. Because I don't know whether you guys found it, but it's a chunky book. Some big words in there as well. And so for people like me, like I'm always starting with the condensed version, but eventually get to the point I've got to tackle the real Bhagavad Gita as it is. And so, yeah, just giving yourself a little, very simple one like that can be quite useful. Amazing. And a lot of people have done that actually during Kartik, which is a month that just passed. People set vows. And like loads of books, it's just like, I'm just going to read 5 pages a day, like those tiny books. And like, it's amazing by the end of the month that you've read a book that you would have never read otherwise. So yeah, definitely. I like that one. What else? Do it in the morning. And what was the first thing? Wake up. Work out regularly. Okay, exercise. Okay, specific. Are you very clear on what you want to achieve?
Yeah.
Like go to the gym? Is it like go for a run?
Go to the gym.
Nice. Brilliant. Okay, fantastic. Yes. Another positive habit. Yeah.
So I've been in KCSoc
3 weeks.
Yeah.
Amazing.
But there's 2 things. I'm very hard on myself to do this now.
Are you expecting to be like a pure devotee already? you're like, I'm done 3 weeks. Why have I not already attained self-realization?
So
okay.
From what I've learned so far, we like to see Krishna, everyone.
Yes.
But as I'm walking on the street, I get realized this strong the lady bumped into me. And I looked at her and I'm like, what? Like, I was irritated.
Yeah.
And I had to like catch myself like, oh, come on, let's do this. Let's say Krishna and everyone and everything.
Yeah.
Let's have compassion. So I'm trying to catch myself. That's the good habit.
Yeah.
I'm trying to cultivate
Yeah.
whenever that happens. Struggle.
I love that. Thank you firstly for the honesty and vulnerability. And I think that's something that self-love is something all of us do need to develop. Firstly, patience is something that's required in spiritual life. We've taken lifetimes to even get to this point. So the fact that we're here means that we're now on the springboard to go further, but it is going to take us some time. Secondly, if it makes you feel any better, and there's no reason why it should, but I've been trying to do this since 19, and I'm now 38. And yeah, equally, I was playing tennis at David Lloyd's last week, and I stepped onto the court. I didn't know if I was court number 6, and I stepped onto court number 7 by accident. Basically, you go in, it's behind the curtain, so you don't disturb the tennis. So I went left instead of right. I literally stepped onto the court, and the guy at the other end, he wasn't even just about to serve. It was not, and he started effing and blinding it. And he went, get back, get the beat back. And I'm standing there like, dude, relax. Like I just took the wrong turn. I'm going back. He's like, stop talking, get back. And I said, you're shouting at me. And it was a face-off, and I was with another devotee at the time. So he said to me, of course, he said, Nanda, relax. Let's just go to the next court. I'm like, I'm not going to relax. I'm being triggered here. And the modes of material nature are acting upon me. The mode of passion has been fully invoked. And then I was like, no, just leave it. But the thing was, and this was horrible, I'm going to be super honest with you. The guy was massively obese. And I said to the devotee, I'm not even lying, I said to him, if that guy has a heart attack in the next week, I'm not going to feel bad. It was not a nice thing to say, not a nice thing to say. Went to the court, and then the devotee is speaking to me, and he's like, you've got to let it go. You can't allow yourself, and all the stuff I would probably say to other people, you're holding a coal, it's burning you up more than anything else. Why allow it? And then I was like trying to justify in my head. I was like, look, if he was on an edge and I had the opportunity to push him, I wouldn't push him. If he was drowning and had the opportunity to put something out, then I probably would. But if so happens he has a heart attack, I'm not going to grieve it. And he went, no, that's not right. It's not the right thing to do. You're a devotee, you need to have compassion. And I said, but I'm not there yet. Like, I'm seriously annoyed at the way, I understand the mode of action upon him, but I'm feeling really, really frustrated by what happened. Anyway, so he says to me, he says, look, at the end of this game, I will apologize. I said, what are you apologizing for? As in the devotee will go to him and say, sorry, we stepped onto your court. And I said, dude, it doesn't work like that. Like, allow it. Like, I'm not gonna go and fight with the guy, but we don't need to apologize. And but this devotee just said, look, everyone's on their own spiritual journey. Ultimately, if he offends you, then there's gonna be problems for him going forward because Krishna won't be pleased. As devotees, we should actually have more compassion in our heart. And I didn't have that compassion. I said, fine, you do what you want to do. So the devotee, when they finished their session, the devotee went over and he said, I'm really sorry, we stepped onto your court. And of course, by that point, the guy had actually been pacified. And he went, oh, don't worry about it. You know, it was a bad moment. I mean, he didn't apologize back, even though he was definitely in the wrong. But he was like, don't worry, I accept your apology, type thing. And of course, I mean, I didn't give him eye contact. I was burning inside. But it was a nice reminder that actually, Krishna was teaching me a lesson in that moment. That whatever we have to learn our lessons through karma. We have to learn our lessons through daily interactions. And people bothering us, people bumping into us. And the quality of a devotee is that they are tolerant and they understand that everything's happening for a reason and that we're meant to learn through that experience. So yeah, that was just a personal story of something that happened very recently. So yeah, don't be at all surprised. But I tell you what was really funny though. So I'm playing tennis with this guy, right? And we're having like a philosophical discussion as I'm smashing it. And I'm like, yes, the super soul is within his heart. And I recognize that Krishna is within his heart as the Paramatma. But at the same time, he's acting like a jerk. And actually, it's just the modes. And so he's just like, chill out, man. Just chill out. So Yeah, that's what, you know, devotees do, they do get upset from time to time, but we have to check ourselves because it's not helpful. Brilliant. Sorry, I went off on one there. Yeah. Sorry, we were talking about good habits.
I think trying to wake up early.
Yeah, trying to wake up early.
And then bad habit is
Oh, you're straight onto the bad. Love it. I was going to go down the line for that, but go for it. Yeah.
is
Not waking up early.
that's the other side of the coin. Maybe like distraction.
Okay.
Getting my mind on
Okay. What time do you try and wake up in the morning?
it depends if I've got to be
Okay.
I try to do
Yeah. Okay.
around 6
How successful are you?
If it's a placement day, then I'm successful.
Because you're being pushed by something else, as opposed to just your mind, i.e. I need to just wake up and
But
chant.
if I didn't have a placement, I put the alarm.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? That's really insightful though, because it also says where our priority lies in terms of our meditation and also how we're conditioned in a particular way. But it is all conditioning, so it's nothing to beat yourself up about. Like some people find waking up early really easy because they've wired themselves in that way. Brilliant, thank you for sharing. Okay.
I would say my good habit, which has helped me a lot as well, is that I try and surround myself as much as possible with people with similar goals and someone like-minded to keep my association
Okay.
as like conducive to my life.
Yeah.
I say that's my good habit. It's helped me a lot. My bad habit is that I can definitely be more proactive in my like spiritual journey. I think I'm definitely, yeah, I don't help myself with how lazy I can be at times.
Okay, fine. So some lethargy. Yeah, yeah, cool. Can I just check? Can you guys hear when they're sharing? You can, yeah. Perfect. Because there's a weird kind of music. There's like it's about like a band is about to start. It's like dum 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 dum. Hopefully you can't. It's not disturbing you. Or is it the Royal Albert Hall? Is it? Nah. Probably just next door. Probably someone who wants to be in the Royal Albert Hall. So you know.
Wait, Nanda Prabhu.
Yeah.
So when Urvi was speaking, I couldn't hear anything, but when Ekta and Pulkit spoke, I heard everything. So if I don't know about the others, but if you want to briefly,
Yeah.
like next time somebody speaks, you can
Ask them to speak up or something.
no, like you can repeat.
I'll repeat. Okay.
It's just like just very
having to speak louder or something.
few words.
Okay. Urvi's point was she tries to wake up early in the morning, and that was
Successful when I'm
successful when she has placements. But otherwise, when there's nothing lined up, then actually finds it quite difficult to control the mind in that situation. And what was the bad habit? I don't think we got to it, did we? We passed it. We'll come back to it. Pulkit's was association. You heard association? Yeah. So you've all heard that Mahatma Gandhi quote, actually. I will not let anyone walk through my mind with their dirty feet. And so it's often described, isn't it, that our mind is our greatest real estate. And so like many of you are from an Asian background, or maybe even if you're not from an Asian background, it might be quite common culturally to take your shoes off before you enter into the home. And that we do that for new carpet. I'm getting some work done in a property, and I'm like, make sure you take your shoes off because the carpet is relatively new. But at the same time, we allow anything and everything into our brains. And I mean that in terms of negativity of the media. I mean that in terms of who we talk to and the association. So it's really critical, actually. That is a habit to cultivate, that I'm specific and choosy about who I let in. And also, even within devotee association, as you'll find out, you also have to be specific. So you need to get into the habit of actually talking about things that are going to raise you spiritually. Otherwise, you end up just talking to devotees about, in my case, Manchester United, the vaccine, Brexit, like whatever it is. That is kind of, the theme of the day, which isn't necessarily going to lift you spiritually. So we have to be smart about how we are using our association as well. Be very purposeful, be very intentional. Brilliant.
Good habit that I guess I'm trying to cultivate is waking up early, but also trying to not get irritated by things. what I mean by that is like, say, like 2 days ago, Friday, I left early than usual and tried to get on the tube, so I made them before to my lecture before time.
Okay.
But the tube was delayed. So that, like, throughout the whole lecture, I was kind of like, oh, I tried to make it early, but I couldn't. So maybe next time, what I'm trying to do is like look past. It's happening, but I can still.
Okay, so your habit's not to do with actually leaving on time. Your habit's around controlling the mind when things go wrong and they're outside of your control. Yeah, fine. And so in relation to that, I think we probably discussed it in the past. Stephen Covey's model from 7 Habits of Effective People is really good. Circle of control, circle of influence, and then circle of concern. So the idea is your locus of what you can actually control is very, very small. But you do have a wider span that you can actually influence. And Covey's model is the more you spend your time and energy in that circle of influence, the happier you will be, as opposed to spending any time or energy on things that are simply outside of your control. Like there are so many things the government is doing now and has done historically and wind me up. And I do spend a disproportionate amount of time moaning about it. And it's just like it achieves absolutely nothing. Yes, I have some influence in terms of I can go to the polling station, but of course I look at all the parties, major parties, I think they're all idiots. And so I'm like, I can't, unless I want to become a politician myself and do something about it, which I don't, I just need to be quiet and just get on with it is what it is. So we have to become conscious, especially in the age we live in. We're in Kali Yuga. And Kali Yuga is an age of darkness, an age of quarrel and hypocrisy, where there are many, many different faults. Of course, there is this boon, this benediction of Krishna consciousness, where there's an opportunity to access the Lord in an easier way because of the Yuga Dharma, the Lord Chaitanya's mercy. But specifically, you can walk around, instead of being Krishna conscious, you can become Kali Yuga conscious. And you're like, this happened, that happened. I'll give you an example. There was that horrendous thing that happened in the news this week about that young boy. I don't know if you saw it. You saw that story. The stepmother and father. Just disgusting. Just, it was, even thinking about it just makes me feel so sad. Now, we could, you could talk about that all day long around kind of social service system and all the rest of it. But I'm very much of the view that if you can't do anything about it, I'm not saying don't have compassion and don't, try and think about how can I help if there is a way to help. But if you can't, then just don't allow your mind to fall into that trap of just kind of into that circle of concern, because that was my concern. I was like, how did the social services not pick that up? Or you see something, you're like, what is going on? Like, how can we be this messed up? But that's a mistake, and it's not helpful for our spiritual growth. Where it can be useful is that it reminds us of the nature of this world. It reminds us of the root problems of greed, envy, anger, lust, and material consciousness that can lead in the extreme to demoniac activities, such as we saw in relation to that kid. So that's how you can actually be Krishna conscious. You don't need to see necessarily Krishna in everything, but I can understand through the eyes of Sastra. So by actually seeing through the eyes of scripture, you then, through your knowledge, through your level of realization, can become Krishna conscious in any situation. So that's the art, but it takes time. So that particular situation, it was, it was horrific. You have to understand that the consciousness of the people that were doing it, imagine, like, you've got to strip it down, you've got to understand, like, they were so desensitized to how they were treating that particular child. And then you can think about, how does that reflect on me? Okay, I would never do that to a child, but how am I being unsensitive to other people in my life? And just trying to take a lesson in relation to that let me not be so self-centered in terms of how I deal with other people. Or maybe with my children, of course, I was immediately thinking about, am I showing enough compassion? Of course, there's nothing like that. But in terms of just compassion and thinking about, am I thinking about my child's needs in terms of what they need in any situation? So I think in any situation, you can turn, and this is a positive habit, you can turn what you receive into an opportunity for learning and growing. Yeah, perfect. So I'm going to say that louder because they can't hear you, because I can just about hear you. So he's trying to get more sleep in. So normally people say less sleep, but you've actually recognized that you need more sleep for your own.
Yeah, and doing activities on quite sluggish, quite tired.
Yeah.
I feel like mentally rested. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, especially when I first expected to get
Yeah.
I just feel like I go to sleep and I wake up. I feel like I'm just starting again. It's not like I'm not that great.
Yeah, understood.
So I think that comes down the deeper of being able to switch off.
Okay.
Even though I'm sleeping, I'm physically.
Yeah.
Mentally still running along. Like,
Yeah.
when I wake up, I think about
They call it, I think they call it REM sleep. I mean, probably the medics here will know better than me. But yeah, there's a certain level of deep sleep that you need in order to actually recharge your batteries properly. And yeah, I mean, I think we can talk about sleep all day long. I think sleep is one of those things that is a real problem in the modern age. Either sleeping too much or sleeping insufficiently or not getting quality sleep. And the impact that has on our health, the impact it has on our mental health as well, physical and mental, is really significant. So I'm glad that you've been honest about that. And yeah, you know, we all need different hours. Like in Christian conscience, they say that you can sleep 6 hours. For most people, you can't sleep 6 hours. Like Sutapadas, who's a brahmachari monk at the manor, can sleep 6 hours and be fine. Me, like if I don't get 8 hours, I get cold sores like the next day. Like literally, like I just can't handle it. Or I get headaches, migraines, whatever it is. So you have to really, you know, when you are formulating your habits, this is a lesson for everyone, make sure they're personal to you. And you have to just be honest and sincere about what that's all about, as opposed to anything else. Perfect. Good.
My good habit is I meditate quite a lot. And my bad habit is, I guess, sometimes I have a voice in my head that just judges like absolutely everything.
Yeah, yeah.
And the bad habit there is the fact that I'm giving the energy away to those thoughts. So like those thoughts aren't exactly the problem, it's the fact that I'm giving the energy to those thoughts.
Yeah, and in psychology we call that the inner critic.
Oh, it's not criticizing, it's criticizing everything else other than.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So
obviously there's
different voices, right? The voice of judgment, the voice of
the voice of judging others, and then there's like self-critical one.
Yeah, and of course both of them are exactly, and both of them are really negative and dangerous for us because. But it's good. The first thing is to identify it and then not let it run you, right? Because it's an automatic thing. Brilliant. Thank you.
I think I'm an overthinker.
An overthinker.
Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like I think things too much, like what if the intentions are bad.
Yeah.
I'm just quite conscious about that.
They call it paralysis analysis, where you just like you become literally paralyzed by trying to overthink every single situation.
Yeah. That's probably one thing I stop doing. Like less spiritually, I'm trying to practice writing more.
Yeah.
Nice. Like if it's a concert, I would practice like intense, but if there's nothing on, I would like.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a real thing about just learning to surrender to the Lord, surrender to kind of what your situation is. Sometimes it's around acceptance as well. Just accept the situation is what it is. And sometimes people think that's defeatist. Well, if I just accept what my situation is, how do I grow? But the point is you're in that situation. So you might as well accept it first and then try and figure out what your next step is going to be, as opposed to beating yourself up in that situation or overthinking what's going on, or he said this, she said that, and I did this, that, you know, and again, it's another voice, the voice of regret that sometimes comes up. And overthinkers are often perfectionists, and they're often very regretful as well of their choices. And like, why didn't I make the right choice? It's like, because we're not perfect. But it's something that we're all guilty of to different degrees. Tejasva, crew, anything you guys want to share? Any reflections? No? When does Tejasva not have reflections? It's like, this is not Tejasva if he doesn't have reflections. Anyway, I'm sure you'll come up with something. I'm monitoring the chat. I'm trying to be as inclusive as possible. I've just come, that's why I'm dressed the way I am. I've just come back from a training session, and we were talking about inclusivity and psychological safety. Therefore, I'm trying to practice what I preached. Okay, perfect. All right, so what I was thinking we could do is, there's no projector,
but I did print off some slides. I'm not sure really what was in these slides, but I had a quick look. What I thought we could start with is kind of tap into everyone's knowledge base in relation to habits. So we know that habits are an automatic process that happen in our brain. There's a couple of books on my bookshelf. One is by James Clear. The other one is by Charles Duhigg. One's called The Power of Habit, one's called Atomic Habits. And all of these essentially try to look at habits that we develop and understand how to break them down. So in Power of Habit, Charles Duhigg explains that there's a habit loop that happens in our brain. There is the cue or the trigger, the routine, and then the reward. And this happens without us even knowing. So last week I was in a Tesla, not my own Tesla, I hasten to add. But and so I was with a friend of mine, and he said to me, and I said to him, "Can you put it into self-drive mode?" Because I've never seen that. Heard it happen, and I'm in there, and you get the whole kind of the Batmobile wings, and it was fun. But I really wanted to see the self-drive. So yeah, he did it. He put it in self-drive mode, and basically hands off the steering wheel, foot off the brake, the accelerator, and it was just fully self-driving. And it basically looks at kind of all the cars on the road. It comes up on the screen, and then it chooses what happens. And this is essentially like what happens with habits. We're an autopilot. Another really interesting book is by Daniel Kahneman, Thinking Fast and Slow, where he explains there's system 1 thinking and system 2 thinking. System 1 is fast, it's unconscious, it's automatic, susceptible to bias. System 2 is rational, it's controlled, it's measured. And so that system 1 thinking, whether we realize it or not, over 90% of our thought process is done automatically. The best example is actually when you are driving, not in self-drive mode, but actually driving in terms of, you passed your test. Do you remember how you used to actually check your mirrors and be like very conscious, like I'm going to look? Like now you are doing it without even thinking. And there's so many things that you're doing without thinking. Hence we've got this whole movement around mindfulness and actually trying to become present to what you're doing when you're doing it. Otherwise you do things without noticing. So you grab your phone, you start checking your WhatsApp, you start checking your Instagram, whatever it is. I guess I'll be relevant and I'll say TikTok as well, because I'm down with the kids. So yeah, but we do it without even noticing. So habits are really important to become conscious. So the first thing you want to do is become conscious of those habits. Then you've actually got an opportunity to change it. So in Charles Duhigg's loop, what he says is you want to isolate the trigger. You want to understand, when do I do that thing? Let's say like your habit is drinking coffee, and you're trying to reduce drinking coffee or eating chocolate. So notice, when do I eat chocolate? There's nothing wrong with drinking coffee or eating chocolate. I'm just giving those examples because he gives those examples in the book. And also because I'm trying to reduce my chocolate intake. So yes, the isolate the trigger. When do I eat chocolate? Who am I around? What is my emotional state? What is the place? So he says, if you notice that it's always the same place, whenever I go into the kitchen, straight after I finished an assignment, and normally when I'm hanging out with someone else who loves to eat chocolate, it's always in the same place. And so you do it like a zombie, just walking along, picking up the chocolate you're eating. You don't even know what you're doing. It's just a thing, it's just a habit, automatic loop that's going on in our brain. So he says, first isolate the trigger. Notice, write down all the times you're doing it. You can still continue doing it, but at least you've isolated the trigger. Then you've got two options. You can either change the trigger, so you put the chocolate somewhere else. So you have to consciously go to somewhere else in order to do it. At which point, like, oops, I'm not supposed to do that. Or, put a little sticker on it, do not eat, whatever it is, to break it being an automatic loop. Or you play around with the reward, which is the other end. So at the reward, it's like, why am I having that chocolate? Is it that I just want sugar? Is it that I just want a screen break? Is it that I want to socialize? Is it I need energy? In which case, have a banana. Have something else that you're going to do differently. So that's the first thing around kind of habits. They are automatic, and we have to learn to make them conscious. And once you make them conscious, you've got a better opportunity of actually controlling them going forward. But I also wanted to hear from you. So there's, we know we hear this saying, what's that famous saying, Jacob? Habits are like a warm bed, easy to get into, hard to get out of. They always used to say that in the ashram. When I was in the ashram, they would always say that to me. They'd be like, oh, it's just like a habit, but it doesn't take long to change a habit. It can only take, and they would give you all these figures. So how long do you guys think it takes to change a habit? Have you heard that particular statistic?
21 days? Other takers? 40 days? Any other answers? 2 months? Okay, so 60 days? Yeah. Any takers here? How long it takes to change a habit? Not Googling it.
Harshita says 66 days.
66, that's very specific, Harshita. Suspicious as well, 66. Yes. So the answer is, it depends on the habit. But yes, the average is considered to be around over 60 days actually. But some take like 254 days, some will take like 7 days. It really depends. Depends on your level of conditioning. Yeah.
What counts as a habit in this like measurement?
Yeah, so I guess it depends on the research studies that were particularly done. So that's what I mean. It's like, it could be the habit, you know, to wake up. So if you always wake up at 7 o'clock, for example, and someone says to you, okay, I want you to change the habit, and I want you to wake up at 6 o'clock tomorrow, I'm pretty sure we could do that. Is that a changed habit? No, it's a one-off, like until it's a lasting change, right? So I don't know about this particular study, but the point is that I take away from that is that habits are hardwired into us. And so they take a long time to change. They're not as easy as everybody says. So one of the principles in Christian consciousness is you can give up a lower habit when you obtain a higher habit, when you get a higher taste. And that's what they say about chanting. So initially it's quite difficult. It's all about our conditioning. So when we are conditioned in a particular way, it's hard to rewire that. It takes time. But once you've changed it, making those decisions are easier. Hare Krishna. So let's take an example of some habits that we want to change. And then, so we'll go around and talk about bad habits. And then I'll ask everyone in the room to suggest some ideas, some practical ideas in order to change it. And the reason I do this is because if you actually express genuinely what your bad habit is, or something that you would like to change, and then we discuss it in this forum, then you're much more likely to have the impetus when you go home to actually go and do it. So like I just talked about that, I better be sincerely serious about it. So would anyone like to share one of the bad habits that they recognize that they want to change? Some of you guys have mentioned it already, but yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go for it, yeah.
So what's the role of
What's going on?
It's always a such a question.
they all make fun of it. I'm asking you.
No, we love questions. We love questions. The whole Bhagavad Gita is question and answers, and so is the Srimad Bhagavatam, and so is practically every scripture in our line. So please ask.
What's the role of conditions in
I'm just going to repeat each time, just so that they can hear. Can you hear what she's saying? No.
Okay, speak louder.
You can try. There's like a weird. Is it a fan? What is that? Something going on. If I pull that, will that close? I don't know. Like break the wire.
We tried like turning this thing to like close it.
Okay. Let me just. So you start explaining, and maybe everyone can kind of repeat so they can hear. And I'm going to climb up here and see if I can just manually pull this. No. No, sorry.
That doesn't work.
Yeah.
It doesn't work? Okay. Anyway, we tried. Sorry guys, we had a window issue. That's what we're trying to sort out. Okay, speak loudly. Ekta, go for it.
So my question is basically.
Her question is basically.
What is the role of conditions when we're trying to make or break habits?
Okay, what is the role of conditions when we're trying to make or break habits? And for example.
Let's say you're trying to go to the gym more. For example, and you say, okay, I have to wake up early. If you do it with a friend, then you kind of comfortable. So like that'll help you kind of.
Yeah, definitely.
That's like a condition. Or for instance, like when we were growing up, I don't know if everyone's parents did this, but I would wake up to school, my mom, she never did this, but she would threaten me that I would throw cold water on.
Okay.
So that's fear.
Okay.
Various conditions can help you develop a habit.
Yeah.
Until she no longer had to tell me that anymore, and I was automatically waking up at
Uh-huh. So different motivations, drivers. Your question is?
We take that into account or we just talking about.
No, yeah, definitely. We've got to use everything we got. I mean, it's very difficult to change habits. So we should absolutely, I mean, we're not sages and like, we just like switch on a button internally and like, right, okay, that's it, I'm going to change that habit. We need to use every tool in the toolbox, and association is a powerful way to do that. And these are all examples of association. So yeah, absolutely. Good question. Did you get it? Kind of. Did you hear my response? Didn't even hear you say so. He absolutely.
I was just in my own head, sorry.
Oh, you were spaced out.
No, I was thinking.
You were totally spaced out, bro.
I think Harshita heard it.
Red-handed.
No. I like, it keeps like cutting out. So I like heard half of it and didn't hear the other.
I'm really sorry. Can't do anything about that. Maybe is it the internet connection, do you think?
Yeah, like it keeps pausing in the middle, but then comes back. So yeah.
It's also the interference. So whenever somebody speaks, so when no one's speaking, we can't hear the interference. But the moment someone speaks, there's like a lot of background noise.
Should we not speak?
No. No, it's just that it cuts out sometimes. So that's why.
How can we overcome this? You're like
Yeah, you need to speak at a different frequency, I think, but don't do that. It's okay.
like higher?
Go more like helium balloon. No, I'm kidding. Don't do it.
Okay. Sorry, I tried. All right. So yeah, let's hear from you. So we want to hear, what is the habit that you really, truly, not just like a made-up one. What is a habit that you truly do want to change, that you know that will benefit your life? So it could be, I know I need to sleep more, as an example. And let's do that, and let's support each other around that to understand why. And then we'll talk a little bit about the modes as well, and understand what role the modes of material nature have to play in all of this as well. So
can I go?
Oh yeah. Oh wait. Mimi's about to say something, and then
okay.
Yeah.
We can move to.
We're good.
Okay. I don't know.
So 7:30, we're getting kicked out, yeah. And
There's a comment in like.
at 7:30. Okay, cool. So we'll stay here until 7:30. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, Tejasvi, you're about to share.
Yeah, I love sleeping. Yeah, so I sleep like a lot, and it's that I might even wake up at the correct time when I'm supposed to get up.
Mm-hmm.
But then for some reason, there's something in my head that just keeps me in the bed.
Okay, so the first question to ask is, are you doing what some of the people here were doing, where you're being unduly harsh on yourself? Like, are you like, oh, I got up at 4:30 when actually I should have got up at 4? Or
no.
At 11 a.m. and you should have got up.
Yeah. The latter.
It's such a lie, because you go to work, so that's just not true.
Well, I find ways to go around it, so.
No, that's not true. That's not true. And I don't think that's real for you. We want real examples.
No, I swear that's actually true. Like, ask any of my close friends. They know I sleep a lot, like, and I need to stop. So.
Okay, but do you need to stop? Like you're doing pretty well in terms of life. Like, do you need to stop?
Yeah. So I think I sleep enough to like function the next day. So I sleep like 8, 9, 10 hours, which is, could do less, I'm happy to do 8. It's just that there's something that's always stopping me from getting out of bed, and I just need to find that and overcome it.
Okay, but going to Urbi's example, if you had slept 8 hours, say you had a late night, you slept 8 hours, but you knew you had to get up for work, would you get up?
Yeah, but there are times where I can just convince myself I don't need to go into work because I can work from home.
Okay, that's a workaround.
Yeah, that was the workaround I was talking about.
Okay, but do you not need to log in at a certain time?
Well, no, as long as I get the work done.
Who am I dealing with here? What is this? All right, any suggestions for Tejas, who likes to sleep? I mean, personally, I don't seem to see it as a problem, but he would like to reduce his sleep from 10 hours to 8 hours ideally. So nothing too crazy, like 6 hours, 8 hours is reasonable. What would you suggest? So we've already talked about kind of external motivators that doesn't really work. Tejasva, what about if something was exciting? Like what if you're going to like Thorpe Park or something?
Oh yeah, I'd get up, like I'd go, like.
Okay, so maybe you're just not excited about work? Like you
No,
enjoy
it's just
work?
I think for me it's that I know even if I get up late, I'm gonna get everything I need to get done.
So maybe you don't need
So,
to, maybe you don't need to wake up earlier then.
but then if I do wake up earlier, I can read more, which I would like to do.
But
Because the rest of my day is always super packed.
you don't
And
really
I,
do it.
I mean, ideally, I like to read more of the Bhagavatam. So
Ideally, you wouldn't, otherwise you'd wake up.
yeah, so we need to focus on that then.
Yeah, I think it's literally it's around understanding what is driving me here. The trade-off is 2 hours extra sleep versus doing something, going to Thorpe Park, going to work, reading extra. So it's really about focusing in on what is the upside for me waking up and getting excited about that, and really focusing in on my why. Thank you. Yes, please. So she's going to suggest something.
Can you hear?
No.
If you can't hear, then I'll just call you.
No, go on. This will benefit for all of us.
So take a blank sheet of paper, right? And do some calculation. You like math?
Can you hear this? Blank sheet of paper.
Can you hear the just?
Yeah, I heard blank sheet of paper.
Okay. Now I'm going to bring you closer.
Well done.
Just for this.
It's just weird.
It is a little bit, but
now
go
we're
on.
just having a one-on-one conversation.
Okay.
Hi.
Hi.
Weird angle. Anyway, so 360.
You want you prefer lower?
No, it's fine.
I mean, I'm kind of doing my best here. You're like, the light doesn't strike my face properly.
I'm really sorry, it's fine. 365 days in a year, right? Multiply that by 24 hours in a day. Yeah. You have all the hours. Now, like, subtract 2 hours, have that on another sheet, and calculate like the aggregate. Like, it would be 2 times 365, whatever, right? And then see like how much benefit those extra hours will make in your entire year. And that, like, just seeing that figure in front of you, like, this is the amount of hours I'm wasting by sleeping. Are you serious? So that'll kind of like hit you hard, and then do it.
Nice.
Yeah, that's really nice. Yeah, thank you.
You've got some quote, haven't you? What's that quote you look at every day?
Well, the consistency quote, yeah.
Go on, share the consistency quote for everyone.
Okay, here. So there's a maths equation. Well, it's not really an equation, but it says 1.01 power 365 is 37.8, which means if you do 1% extra every single day, in 1 year's time, you're going to be 37.8 times better than what you were last year, which I think is really cool. So it's just focusing on small bits every day rather than doing something intense only for 1 day.
There you go. So yeah, so to your own point then, just do half an hour. You can't do 2 hours. Do half an hour.
Okay.
Isn't it? Imagine you do half an hour, so you still get 9.5 hours sleep. That's amazing. And you get to read Bhagavatam for half an hour.
Yeah, that's true.
And you still get to do everything else in terms of your work. So yeah, don't try and leap too big. If like the jump from 10 to 8 is too big, half an hour. That's what I was going to suggest.
Sweet, yeah.
Perfect. Oh, we got another suggestion here as well. Everyone's chipping in here, loving this. Yes, go for it.
This worked for me for like a month, and it stopped working, but maybe it'll be more effective for you. But basically, just put your alarm far away from your bed so that you have to get up in order to get rid of the alarm.
This is apps where you have to scan a book.
Oh,
Something.
that's
Do an activity
Scan a book.
or something. I think it's called alarm timer.
But the problem I find with those types of things is that it puts me in an insanely bad mood.
Yeah.
Like it's just so jarring, and like I would never do that to myself again.
For me, I'm glad I'm this job, because otherwise I'd be like sad.
Really, yeah. I guess if it's really important, I guess if it's too far, you won't hear it, and you can put the covers over your head, and there's workarounds. Yeah, there's workarounds.
Harshita's got something.
I had something as well.
Oh, Harshita, go for it.
Yeah, it was for the sleep one. So it's like I'm one of those people who doesn't need too much sleep. Like I can wake up early quite easily. And I think like one of the things that like helps me is just not thinking about it. So it's like once my alarm goes off, I will literally like in about like 10 seconds be out of bed and just not think about it. And that just like helps me not procrastinate while in bed.
So there's a book called the 5-second rule, where they talk about exactly this principle. And yeah, basically you've got to make your decision within 5 seconds. Otherwise it's game over. So there's a whole book dedicated to it. Maybe you could write a book called 10-second rule, Harshita.
Okay.
Like a similar concept. Nice, thank you for sharing, really useful. Let's check in with Layla as well. Anything, Layla, you want to add to this conversation if you're still there?
Not at the moment. I mean, I do have quite a few bad habits, but I think there's too many to share them all. So
Do you want to throw one into the mix and we can get some advice from our esteemed counsel here?
Yes.
Well, the worst one for me at the moment is probably the fact that I'm vaping. So I think like I just do it when I'm bored and
Vaping?
yeah, vaping.
That's
So,
smoking without the smoke or something, isn't it?
yeah, kind of. And yeah, so I got into the habit over lockdown, and I don't know, I think I just sort of wanted a dopamine rush because there was nothing like, there's nothing going on, if that makes sense. And now I'm sort of in the habit of doing it. It's really hard to stop. And also my boyfriend also does it. So like we're both kind of deep into it and we've struggled to stop doing it.
Okay, yeah, let's take that one then. So that's a really good one. So yeah, people often talk about like smoking habits, and vaping is basically the same without. Is there nicotine? There's still nicotine in there, is it? Is that why it's addictive?
Yeah. But it's not even, to be honest, like it's not even that at this point. It's like an ingrained because like the nicotine only affects you when you first start. Like now it's almost like, there's literally no point doing it at all. Like there's literally no point. It's just a habit. Yeah.
Which is, and so I think definitely the first thing is, as you said, just realizing there's zero benefit in me doing this other than costing me money, and just reminding yourself of that fact the next time you pick it up. Because I think a lot of our habits we start doing because we just got into it, and then when you make it conscious and you realize this really isn't helping me, you've got to really focus on what is the upside for me. So, but yeah, anyone got any tips for a vaping habit? Yes. No. I'll repeat it.
So I think one of the things I was said last week came to mind is right now. But for example, giving up these habits, it's good to replace like a bad habit, maybe a good habit. So rather than dropping something, seeing if there's something you can hold on to instead. So if you want to give up maybe you could, I don't know, like example given on weekend was like instead of smoking, like take the lollipop instead. The lollipop's not good for you, but it helps you break that.
Something to do,
it gives you something else to do when you're craving.
Layla, I don't know if you heard that. Did you hear any of that? I'll repeat if not.
Yeah, could you repeat it, please?
Yeah, so Urvi was saying that just as earlier we were saying you've got to replace a lower habit with a higher habit, i.e. the lower taste with something that you can enjoy. If you don't necessarily find that, then just find something else that you do instead of vaping at that particular time. So she was giving the example of if you're a smoker, then you may just want to kind of suck on a lollipop every single time. And although that sounds like a ridiculous example, it's something to do because you're used to doing something, you can't just give it up essentially. So, during that period, like you must, what I would do is I would think about when do you vape? So one thing is you vape when you're with your boyfriend. And it may also be like at a certain time of day, etc., etc. What would happen if you didn't buy the stuff? Like right now, you've got some resolve, some strength. If you didn't buy, I don't know what it's called, the vape. I don't know what it is exactly. But if you didn't buy it, what would happen? Would you, at that point, you're like, I really feel like vaping. Would you then go to the shop and buy it? Or because if it's too much of an inconvenience, you would just allow it? What do you think you would do?
Yeah, I I go out of my way to get it. It's pretty ingrained.
Oh, really? And
Yeah.
is it because does it allow you to relax? Like, what's the upside to it?
To be honest, there literally isn't any. That's why it's so like it's really hard to describe, because it's just like the act of doing it. It used to relax me when I started, but now I've like associated it with that feeling, even though I don't get that feeling anymore, if that makes sense. But I still associate it with that, like rush of dopamine or relaxation or whatever.
And that's why the loop that I talked about, Charles Duhigg's Power of Habits, is that reward. And so in our brain, we are connecting that reward to that particular activity. So you literally have to find something else that you enjoy doing that's fun during that time.
Yeah.
But let's see what others got any other suggestions for that. Go on.
Didn't have the mindset. Literally like zero your bank balance and like put it separately.
Yeah.
Saving up for travel or whatever, something else that's more motivating.
Okay, so Layla, if you were broke and you needed to vape, would you steal?
No, hopefully not.
But no, I'm trying to gauge like how strong it's become, because like that's the issue with like different types of drugs, right? Like it is actually like druggies get so hooked that they have to kind of spiral into a life of crime. But the point Hector was making was, if you just literally forced yourself to say that money for the vaping is going to be allocated for something that's fun, you know, whatever you enjoy doing, but literally every single time you don't vape, you reward yourself in a different way. So you reward yourself by saying, look, I've saved myself £5. I'm putting that towards a kitty that's ultimately going to allow me to go on holiday or whatever it is that you enjoy doing. Because I think the main thing, based on what you said, is about switching up the reward. You're getting a reward from this. You've got to change that reward. And otherwise there'll be no incentive, no motivation to change. That was Hector's point.
Yeah, that's a really good idea, actually. I have been trying to like I have Monzo, so I've been trying to like set a pot so that I put money in every time I don't do it. And I think that's a really good idea to like actually use that money to reward myself in some other way.
Oh, you have to use it. Otherwise, there's no joy in just putting it in a pot. You won't get the reward. You won't get the dopamine hit. You've got to spend it. Spend it on something fun.
Yeah, that definitely.
If that's not motivating enough, like for yourself, then yeah, it's good. Like spend it for someone else. Like if you have a sibling and you say, I'm gonna give them a present.
Wow.
Or if you see someone that's homeless and say, I'm providing a meal.
I mean, you're very selfless. That's amazing.
Doing it for someone else
is a higher taste. Maybe for you, it won't be for everyone, but yeah, certainly that's the highest type. Layla, so she's just saying that if there's nothing for yourself, someone that is very dear to you, that you love, buying something for them, so mom, a dad, a sibling, your boyfriend, whatever it is.
That's actually, yeah, I think that would work even better, actually, because I don't really get excited by like anything that I'd buy for myself. But if I was to like make someone else happy, I think that would be more rewarding.
And also they would be really happy. Like if you said, I don't know, let's say if to your mum and you said, Mum, I gave up vaping in order to buy this for you. Like she would love that.
Yeah, I think actually that's really good. I think I'll definitely try that.
Well, keep us updated, Layla. Come back to KCSoc again and tell us again.
Will do.
Do you ever come in person? We'd love to meet you.
I haven't come yet. I was meaning to come tonight because I don't live that far away, but
bad habit.
Yeah, it just was a bit cold, so I didn't really want to leave the house or
the place. Add that to your list of habits, Layla. When it's cold, to tell your mind, I'm going to go in and have some food with these people because it's good food. Okay, perfect. All right, let's go back to the room and hear others from you guys. Any other habits that you think will be useful for us to all discuss and change? Go on.
Sometimes, or more than sometimes, I guess my mind wanders for like ages during meditation. So like, I'll just have like a sit where I just my mind just wanders for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Instead of an actual meditation.
And have you fallen into the really terrible habit, which I once did when I was younger, was actually when you're meditating, deliberately distracting your mind. So like whether that's watching TV, I know some
I don't
people.
think that counts as meditation.
No, it's not. No, that's exactly the point. That's exactly the point, that people fall into, like, especially if you try and put a number, like put pressure on yourself, like I'm going to chant a certain number of rounds, for example. I know people who are like, they've taken the vow to do it, and then they feel that pressure to do it, but can't control the mind because the mind is wild. And so may not be watching TV, but maybe kind of looking at their phone, their WhatsApp, you know, whatever it is whilst chanting. So it's good. The reason I'm giving that example is that it's good that you're not at that level. And the fact that your mind wanders, we know from the Bhagavad Gita that the nature of the mind is flickering, chanchalam. So it does go back and forth. And so Krishna's advice to Arjuna is that we have to practice through suitable detachment and practice.
What is suitable detachment?
So basically acknowledging that the mind does wander, and so not getting too, because that in itself can be a trick. Like, and that's exactly what you're saying, right? It's like, oh, my mind's here, there, and everywhere. It's really dragging the mind back and saying, okay, you wandered for a bit. I'm not going to go off in a tailspin about this. Let's get back to what I'm trying to do, which is chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, and remind yourself of why you're focusing. So something I do when my mind is really, really struggling, I might read something like spiritual, like read a verse or something like that. So again, you know, technically speaking, you're not really meditating, because how can you properly hear the holy name and read at the same time? You can't. You are kind of multitasking. But I'd rather do that than kind of be like in a completely different space. So that's why we're allowed to use all of our different senses. That's why people have deities in their homes. So you can look at a deity, you can look at a picture of Krishna, you can look at other things that are going to remind you of bringing your mind back to the holy name. Does anyone else have any other tips when it comes to, obviously the chanting is probably the biggest habit, good habit or bad habit that you can form. Anyone, any experiences? You want to share anything based on? You've been chanting for a few years now? Yeah.
I like to think about reading. I read as well, but not long enough for me to remember.
Yeah. So you're almost giving your mind a break, and it's saying like, I'm going to go and read for a bit. Or like if you're sitting in one place in like a lotus position, it's like going for a walk. And sometimes you go for a walk and start looking here, there, and everywhere, but bringing it back. Okay, so for those people that didn't hear, it was just about reading in between. And I think there's a really important lesson there as well. Don't give your mind too much to deal with. So like if you're like, I'm going to sit down and chant 16 rounds, the mind's going to just go crazy. Like the mind is like, whoa, like what, 2 hours? You want to control me for 2 hours? No way. So therefore, Prabhupada would often give the example of chant in chunks. So like 4 rounds, 4 rounds, 4 rounds. And if you can't do 4 rounds, do 1 round, take a break, 1 round. But just make sure that during that time, you're very much focused in to try and make it as attentive as possible. Like sometimes you have to just tell your mind, like I literally have a conversation, like mind, 7 minutes. Like just give me 7 good minutes. I just want to focus on the holy name. And then you can do what you need to do for just 7 minutes. And just don't put yourself around other things that you know are going to distract you at that time. So yeah, I mean, these are all kind of the common tips and tricks for good japa. Anything, Pulkit, you learned when you were in the ashram?
Well, chanting with other people is obviously good.
Chanting with other people?
That helped me. Actually, yesterday, I came across something which I hadn't done before.
Okay.
And it really, really helped me. And I was late at night, and I wasn't able to get meditation and chanting I wanted to get done in the morning throughout the day. And I really wanted to get it done. I'd been going for about half an hour, and I'm just getting straight. Was completely unable to gain control of my mind. Like no matter what I tried, I would just get distracted. So then first time I just tried to be like super, super conscious of what I was trying to do.
Yeah.
So literally every syllable at like a snail's pace compared to what I usually would try to. And it helped me a lot. I found that sometimes if I try and like control my mind using the mind, or like trying to come up with different methods, it's a lot harder compared to this time when I was just literally relying on my senses. So it was just, okay, let me actually actively listen into what I'm doing. But let me actively be conscious of what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And instead of trying to escape from my senses and my mind, I tried to use them in my meditation.
Nice.
And that was, it wasn't something I'd done before, but it really, really helped me.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, meditation is not an easy thing, and I guess it's the habit that all of us are trying to cultivate to some degree. But if you do get better at controlling your mind, then you'll be able to transfer that to other areas of your life.
Just one thing that came to mind when I started one thing that helped was gradually building up. Don't feel that pressure from other people that
Yeah.
Don't get into that comparative state. And one like practical thing I tried to do was stay around every month. And so I guess for like 6 months I'd already just been doing one round just to get into this. And then I'm like that person that can't start having like round on Tuesday. I have to be Monday or like from the new year. So from the new year, I was like in January, according to the month, that's when we round.
Okay, nice.
So 1 month, January, February. You don't have to go up at 5 once.
Do you stop at 12?
No.
I like the sound of that. Like December 12 rounds and then January 1 again. I like that.
That helped me, even if it was 7 minutes, that 1 month, I'll be saying choose to do 2 months.
Yeah.
It helped me just get into the rhythm of being sitting in one place for that long. And then once I was comfortable with that amount, then it felt
Yeah, definitely.
that helped.
Yeah, so it's about building up slowly. It's about attaching it to other habits. There's all these kind of so many different tips and tricks when it comes to habits. But yeah, association is probably the biggest one, as Pulkit said. So make sure you surround yourself with other people. Make sure you make yourself accountable. So for example, Leila, if you are still there, if you do this, maybe tell your boyfriend like this is what I'm doing, and maybe support each other. Hopefully he's also trying to do it, stop it. If he's not, then you might want to change your association in relation to the vaping, not the boyfriend, just the vaping, All right. Anyone else? I think we should probably wrap up and start transferring across to the other place where we're going to all eat a wonderful meal. Thank you so much to the people that dialed in. Apologies for the sound that you couldn't properly hear, but thank you for your contributions today. Really, really appreciate it, and hope to see you all in person soon too.